rebuilding. The catastrophic failure, a new start, physically, mentally, our careers, our businesses. Step back, first step, next step. The driver in me just wants to get it done tomorrow. We'll do this, do that, let's move this, where are we at with this? You build some confidence, build some self-esteem, start to feel better about yourself. The Silverback Blueprint Podcast, a show for men over 40. We focus on getting stronger, staying motivated, building discipline, creating a community, and becoming truly happy. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 145 of the Silverback Blueprint Podcast, Our Needs. We were talking last episode actually about our surroundings and how having the right surroundings will make it not easier, but give us a better chance at achieving the goals and changes that we want to do. So I was looking at that a little bit, and I was thinking about a theory that I like to go back to every once in a while, Maslow's theory of hierarchy of needs. And I thought this would be a good episode to kind of get into that and break that down a little bit, as far as I understand it. I'm not a genius, but I'm smarter than the average bear. So this is kind of what my take on it is. And if you haven't seen it, we'll put a link to the pyramid in the show notes. Maslow is spelled Maslow, apostrophe S, hierarchy of needs. It's some psychology stuff we're going to be looking at in this episode. And what I want you to do is just imagine a pyramid, kind of like the food pyramid, but one that won't make you fat. All right? So at the base, we've got the basic needs, and at the top, we've got the pinnacle or the ultimate, or where it all leads to as we work up the pyramid, if you will. And at the very bottom, we've got the physiological needs. So we've got our food, our water, warmth, rest. So for us, a place to live, sustenance, we can survive. We're not dying. Those are the first needs, right? We're not going to let ourselves starve to death. So if we were in that situation, we would do whatever it takes to survive. Pretty basic stuff. We take it for granted here in Canada or North America for sure. But it's the same for all of us. We have to have this covered. Number two would be the safety needs, and that's safety and security, meaning that ideally you live in an environment that is safe for you physically. Right? So the neighborhood you live in, we hear stories about people who live in tough areas that have a lot of crime. Definitely that affects those individuals differently and affects the outcome of who they become and how they get through that and to break free from that. But at the end of the day, we ideally want or hopefully have a place that's safe, that we can go to sleep at night and not worry about being murdered in our sleep. Right? Or our house being blown up by a bomb, right? Like some countries go through a lot of shit. And that's, I always find that interesting, is that people take a lot of this stuff for granted around us, where people are striving just to have those basic needs met in many other countries. So that's a whole other thing we can get into down the line. So those are the first most important needs. And I often come back to saying that, hey, listen, I think part of the issue is that we don't have enough stress in our lives to the point where we have to worry about where we're going to make rent and that kind of thing and how we're going to put food on the table. And some people, that is very much a big stressor, right? So at the end of the day, we need those things just to get started, right? Nothing else can really happen unless we get that happening overall. Once those needs are met, we move up into the psychological needs. The next level would be the belongingness and the love needs. So here's where we're looking for relationships, friendships, intimate relationships, right? We need that. We need to feel loved. We need to feel that we matter to people. And this is where we get into talking about our circle of influence, the 5 people we hang out with, because ideally we've developed is that we're going to have friends. We're going to want to hang out with people. And depending on how we feel about ourselves dictates a lot about the type of people that we hang out with. So again, super important, right? And that's where that whole, you're the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with. If you don't feel you're worthy to hang out with a higher level of quality or a person, right? If you don't feel that, then you're going to hang out where you feel you deserve to be, where you're accepted, right? Where you're good enough, right? And often we settle And often we hang out with people that we really don't want to hang out with, but we don't feel we're worthy enough to hang out at a higher level. So super important that we look at that. And we've talked about that before. We're the sum total. If you're hanging out with 4 losers, you're going to become the 5th loser. If you're hanging out with 4 superstars, you're going to become the 5th superstar, right? It's all about what our tolerance for the uncomfortable feeling of stepping outside of what we feel our range is. And that takes us into the next level of esteem needs, right? We need to feel a certain amount of accomplishment and prestige, and we'll tend to hang out in areas that fulfill that for us. So you've heard, the term of, underachiever. Well, the reason why a lot of people underachieve is because they're at a point where they're getting things done, they're getting some stuff happening, but they're not willing to risk the things to go to the higher level. Maybe they're not equipped with the confidence and the self-esteem to push themselves to a higher level. So that's why you'll find people sort of latch on to something that becomes their thing, right? They might be a horrible person at home, but, at work they excel. Right? They might not be great at work. They might not get all the promotions at work, but at home, they excel with their family life. Like, we'll find our thing. And we tend to spend a lot of time there because that's what makes us feel better, because that feeds into our esteem needs. And sometimes when our self-esteem is shit and we're beat up and we don't have any feeling of accomplishment, that's when we start to do self-destructive things. That's where we start to find things to make us feel better, even for an instant. So that would be, your food, your drugs, your booze, your sex. We'll do seemingly crazy things just to feel a little bit better, just for a little bit, before the wave of self-loathing comes washing upon us, because we need to have that feeling of accomplishment, that feeling of joy. We need it for our survival, so we're going to seek it out. We're going to seek it out in the best way we know how, or the best way we're equipped to at the moment. Makes a huge difference. Ever look at someone and wonder, why is that person hanging out with that person? They could do so much better. Well, the thing is, they don't feel they could do so much better. Or they're hanging out with someone they know isn't the ideal partner for them, but because of their lower self-esteem, they feel this is the best they can do. This is the best they deserve. That self-esteem is huge. And I think if there's one thing that I think that can be taken, that can have the biggest effect on us with the smallest improvement, it's in our self-esteem, our feeling of accomplishment. That's why for us, we take it, the working out as one of the main tools to start to create a higher sense of self-accomplishment, self-improvement, self-esteem. We need to have those little victories. Going back to that, there's that video going around about start off by making your bed. That might be the only victory you have all day, but at least you have a victory. It's just, so we approach that when people start with us at Hostile, or anything when I work with anyone, is we start with the physical, because the physical is the thing we can do right out of the gate. It can be simple as a walk. Go for a 10-minute walk, go for a 5-minute walk. Anything that we can say we're going to do, and then when we do it, we feel that we got something done. Doesn't matter how small it is at first. Not to mention the chemical serotonin release that happens from physical activity that floods our brain afterwards. It's very drug-like. Euphoria. Your body's rewarding you for surviving because it thought you were running from a fucking bear, not just huffing and puffing up a flight of stairs because you're so out of shape. But it has the same net effect. So for me, that's one of the quickest ways to start building that confidence and self-esteem, those mini victories. Last night we were doing heavy sandbag carries, and we were carrying it sort of in the front of our body, kind of like the strongman do with the Husafeld stone, where you just have it in a bear hug and you go across. So I had the guys doing it, and we had bags going from 40 pounds all the way up to 80 pounds. And that's what I was telling them. I said, we have red line to red line is 60 feet. You pick up that bag, and your whole goal, your whole world becomes about just crossing to the other side. And getting across your side and putting that bag down. And yeah, you're out of breath, and now you're gassed, and your back is getting tight, but you have that sense of accomplishment. And that built a little bit of confidence. So after that, I said, well, we're going to do a double now. That means you have to go away, cross to the other red line, turn around and come back. And they only had about a minute and a half rest to recover before they had to do it again. But they knew they could do the half. So they had that little bit of confidence, they had a little bit of success. So you saw it. They picked it up and they did it. And you could see them fighting to get to the other side. Then we gave them a little bit of a break. Then I said the big one, a full lap of the gym. If I'd have started them off with a full lap of the gym, it would have been hard on them physically for sure, but it would have been really hard on them mentally because they would have picked that bag up. They would have been dealing with the fact that this fucking bag is heavy, it's awkward. It would have been a lot harder on them psychologically if we would have started with that. In fact, some of them might not have finished, or they would have put it down more often, or mentally they would have had a harder time to do it. But because we started with a small goal, and a few minutes later, a little bit bigger of a goal, and then a few minutes later, the big goal, they had confidence. Even in that small amount of time, we were able to build some confidence to the point that hey, I can do this. I was able to do the next one. I'm going to be able to do this. And I know it's going to be tough, but I know I can do it because I just had 2 successful runs already. So in a small amount of time, we're able to make those changes almost in an instant. So at the end of the day, we need to fight for those feelings of accomplishment. We need to fulfill some positive self-esteem. Because when that happens and you start getting really good at that and that gets better and that improves, then we can go to the very top of the pyramid. And the top of the pyramid is where we want to be because that's where we start to become who we truly want to become. The self-actualization of ourselves. Working on achieving our full potential. Addressing our creativity, our successfulness, to the point where we start to become proud of ourselves. That's the pinnacle. But all these levels have to be reached. All these levels have to be dealt with, and all these levels have to continually improve for us to get to there. And it's quite interesting to see just how complex it is for us to get to the point where we can sit there and say, hey, I set a goal of losing 25 pounds and I lost 25 pounds. Because it starts at the base with the physiological needs. The food, water, warmth, and rest. Well, we need to have the right food. We need to rest properly. Then we get into the safety needs. We need the safety needs, and the safety and security is where we live, where we train, where we spend our time. I'll often talk to people when they join the gym. One of the things I'll tell them is that this is a safe environment for them. And for some people, that's a big fear to go into the unknown, into a new facility, into a new gym. They may never have worked out. They may not have worked out for 20 years. Couple that with the fact that they sit there and they have poor self-esteem, right? All those other fears become magnified. We want to be safe. We want to be able to go to school every day. We want to be able to go to work every day. We want to be able to go to our jobs, our careers, our businesses every day and feel relatively safe. Because if we don't, if we're always walking into chaos, uncertainty, it's not a natural place for us to be, and it'll have a physical and mental toll on us. We call it stress. We need to make sure that we address some of those needs. We need to feel safe. If you're going to work every day and you're being treated like shit, that's not safe. If you're going to work every day and you work in a business or a job where there's lots of people and there's 1 or 2 people that are always giving you a hard time, bullying you, just like in fucking school, it's not safe. Now, I think we've gone a little too far on the other side where, we're fucking triggered by the least little thing. So I think we've gone a little too far over there, but I think it feeds into our needs for safety because we want to make sure. So we've gone too far the other way. But that next level, the third one, the belongingness and love needs, the intimate relationship and friends. If you truly live alone and you don't have friends and you don't have anyone to be intimate with, it affects you. You can sit there and say it doesn't, but it does affect you. So sometimes we'll sit there and we'll hang out with people we normally wouldn't hang out with because we're lonely. But the problem is when we hang out with the wrong people for us, for our needs, our goals, and what we want to be, then it leads us down a different path, which will make us even more unhappy or unfulfilled. And then the esteem needs, the feeling of accomplishment, prestige. We'll see that sometimes. We'll have a friend of ours, we'll hang out with people, and all of a sudden we'll get to a situation where you can tell they're in their element. They're in their zone. They're in their wheelhouse. There's a physical change. They're taller. They're standing up more proud. They're projecting more. They look more comfortable. They look more confident. So that's what we talk about. Do what you love for a living, for a career. Because that has a huge effect on your prestige and how you feel about yourself and your feeling and senses of accomplishment. All these things need to happen before we can get to the point where we really want to be the better version of ourselves. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll leave ourselves stuck somewhere in one of these positions because we talked about earlier where you kind of get past the physiological needs and the safety needs. That means you've got a roof over your head, you've got food, you've got some necessities, you've got some money. A lot of people will stay there because it's comfortable, because they're not ready to deal with some of the stuff that has to be dealt with to go into the belongingness and the love needs. Maybe you're a fucking jerk and you can't maintain a relationship. We have friends like that. We all have that friend that's always always dating a new person, always in the glow of a new relationship. 6 months later, it's gone down the shitter, and they're working on the next one. They can't get past the glow of the relationship because they haven't worked on some fundamental changes they need to make for themselves. So they just keep cycling and cycling and cycling. Right? At the end of the day, it takes a lot out of us. And if we can't get past that part, we're going to have a hard time moving into the self-esteem and the feeling of accomplishment and prestige because we can't get past the other part. We need to be able to move through these. We need to be able to get better at these. We need to find our way through these. So if you're sitting there and you're truly not happy, you're truly not in a position where you want to be, look at this pyramid. Look at where you're at in this. Try to figure out where you're struggling, where your issue is, and what needs to be improved, what you need to improve to move to the next level or to get better at the next level. Because no matter what, don't kid yourself. We're somewhere in the middle of this pyramid where we struggle, but at the very top, the self-actualization, that's who we are. That's where we're at. That's where we currently are right now. So if you don't like where you are, then some things have to change along the way moving up through that pyramid. Because who we are today is the sum total of those 5 areas. We represent the average of that. We represent, we're the final result. Where we are right now, we're that result based on what we're getting done in that pyramid. It's very interesting. Very hard to look at it. Very hard to sit there and see, hey, you know what? If I'm really honest with myself, I need to improve here, here, and here. And we can all improve in all the areas. But there's going to be an area or two that if we make some improvements there, it'll have a big change. It'll have a bigger effect. It'll make the most amount of difference immediately. But again, right, this all comes back down to stopping for a moment, finding time throughout the day, every day, reflecting, looking at ourselves. Where are we at? Where am I trying to go? What's stopping me? What about me is stopping me from doing what I want to do? And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of tough things that have to be dealt with. There's a lot of tough talk that you're going to have to deal with. There's a lot of tough feelings that are going to have to be faced. And that's why a lot of us don't do it. That's why a lot of us will find other ways to keep ourselves busy, to block some of this stuff out. Some people just focus on the basic needs, but they're not happy. Some people focus on the middle part and their basic needs aren't met and they're not happy. So we need to look at those areas and we need to get as good as possible. More great English here on the Silverback podcast. We need to be as efficient as possible. We need to strive to improve in all these areas. But I'll tell you right now, find the areas that you know are the issue and put effort there. That's the uncomfortable part. That's the stuff that's going to make it hard. It's easy to go buy the new workout shoes. That's why a lot of people do it. They're excited, they're pumped. I went and bought a new outfit. But they went to the gym once last week, twice the first week, and they haven't gone. They're not going to go next week. So really, they didn't work the areas that need to be worked, the hard part. So for us, at Hostile, that's one of the things we work on, is we try to create an environment where you want to come back, where you do feel like you belong, where you're part of the group, where it's safe to come in. You're not being judged. You're being held accountable. There's a difference. And some people don't like being held accountable, so they'll say words like, "You're judging me." No, I'm not judging you. I'm holding you accountable. So at the end of the day, we want to make our gym to the point where you want to come in. We want you to come in. We know that if you string 3 workouts in every week, you're going to feel better physically, but emotionally, you're going to start to feel accomplishment. You're going to start to feel capable. When your muscles start getting stronger, you feel stronger. We want you to replace some of the things that you're filling the voids with now, like the Netflix, the food, the booze, drugs, sex. We want you to replace that with the euphoria of a post-workout rush, because that's a great thing to have happen. I had one lady actually the other day talking to me, and she goes, I really want to do this, but I'm really afraid. I don't want exercise to become my crutch. And I'm like, man, you've got a lot of distance before that becomes an issue. But you could see she was using it as an excuse. Because yes, there's the odd person out there that exercises too much, that has body dysmorphia and doesn't think they're strong, they're muscular enough, and doesn't think they're lean enough. But that's so fucking rare. So when someone points it out to me that that's their concern, I'm like, you don't have to worry about that. And if that ever happens, we'll have that conversation. I promise you. But it's being used as an excuse. Oh, I don't want to look that muscular. It looks gross. Well, seeing your gut hanging over your pants all the time, right, is gross too. And you feel that way. But then you turn around and point at something else. You know how fucking hard it is to get to the point where you get so muscular that you get that what people quote unquote call gross. Oh, that's too muscular. She's too skinny. She has veins. I'm like, sister, you've got a long fucking road ahead of you before that becomes an issue. But we use it as an excuse. Why? Because it makes us feel bad about how we are now, rather than just own it. Because it affects our self-esteem. We feel a little bit better if we turn around and go, oh, I don't want to be like that. Well, truth be told, you don't want to be the way you are right now. But you're trying to deal with your self-esteem. You're trying to not feel bad for an instant. Whereas in some areas, I'm like, fucking feel bad. Embrace that, but then use it to make changes. When you guys get a chance, go check out, we'll have a link in the show notes for Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. Take a look at it. Spend some time with it. I know you guys that sit there every morning and do your rituals and do your journaling. You've got time to look at that. Spend 30 minutes a day with yourself and watch yourself improve dramatically, guys. Really cool exercise to look at. Really cool visualization to see where it is. Find out where you think you are on that. If you have any questions, you can email me, kurthaas@gmail.com. I'd be happy to share some of my experiences with it. That's all I got to say for now on that, guys. Head over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Head on over to hostilegear.com, where you can get a self-actualizationing hoodie. Use the code word Silverback to save 25%, so you can also actualize some savings. And as always, guys, work hard, motherfuckers, and I'll talk to you guys later.